As some of you may know, I got the opportunity last night to be part of a discussion with directorx, the director behind the much maligned Robin Hood TV show coming out of Canada, and to be fair, some of that maligning is absolutely deserved, while others, let's be real, is a bit excessive to feed the YouTube algorithm, because we know how the YouTube algorithm works. Well, the fact that he even came on the show when it was largely nothing but his detractors, and held his own for a 4-hour conversation, I first of all think is worth commending, and want to just real quick say, good job, directorx. We appreciate it. Hopefully more things like this come in the future, whether it be from you or other directors or people in the industry. Also, a quick thank you to Hypnotic for, well, putting this together and getting all of us on the show to be able to speak with directorx. That being said, I wanted to show you guys some of the things that I had to say, also some of the things that he had to say at various points during this dialogue and this conversation, because I think it's indicative to either bridges being built or burned, and I kind of want to see another audience point of view when it's laid out in the way that I'm going to be laying out. So before anything else, go ahead, hit that subscribe button. I'm trying to get to 2,000 subscribers before the end of the year, and with less than 350 to go, that's looking real doable. So hit the button. Let's get into this discussion we had with directorx and whether you would consider it fruitful or not.
Ripley, the Major Kusanagi, and like we've done this is not new shit for us. The shame is that we're now reactive to it, but regardless. But black women haven't had those places. So are you really surprised that a black woman gets to be in Star Wars as one of the main heroes, and for her to say, God damn.
It shouldn't be a surprise when that happens, but people on both sides act like it is, and I think that's a massive problem. So because you're
that
talking
was
about
my
the review
biggest
bombing.
issue, yeah.
Right. I don't like individuals on either side being the reactionaries who are talking about how this is how it's a problem or it's a great thing or whatever, when it should just be someone was cast. So on the topic of review bombing,
you got next, bro. Sorry, Leon. Go ahead.
On the topic of review bombing, I've seen your show. I've not reviewed your show. I've not put a rating on IMDb because I don't believe in reviewing a show until it is finished. So I'm actually going to keep watching it. At this point, I'm going to be real. It's not a 1-star. It's also not very high. It's like a 3-star as it currently stands, if I'm being 100% honest. But it's not a 1-star. It's better than Ahsoka. Not even going to lie. It's fucking better than Ahsoka. And I am going to stand by that. As somebody that dropped Ahsoka after 5 episodes because I just could not do it anymore, I went through 4 episodes of Robin Hood thinking, yeah, a lot of this is bad, but not near as bad as Ahsoka. If anything, Ahsoka was nothing. It was so boring, I wanted to quit to the point where I eventually did. Certain aspects of Robin Hood you can say are bad, some aspects also good, and some are so bad they're good, like an old 80s B movie. So I think that there's actually more enjoyment to be had with the Robin Hood show, and I'm going to stand by it. You know, a lot of people will probably question, okay, they got a director on the show, this is, you know, kind of a clout-chasing moment, are they going to stroke his ego, are they going to say nice things? And no, trust me, a lot of individuals went pretty hard on the paint in this guy. I tried to go for a more, slower academic approach where we discuss ideas, but at the end of the day, there was no ego stroking there. You can hear it from me first. Robin Hood, still better than Ahsoka.
And that Ahsoka was not that bad. But
Yes, it was. We're going to defend that show.
Where I'm coming with this, though, I have a point, is that we've seen this before. So in terms of we've seen this before, we've got an example of the show Lovecraft Country. Now, Lovecraft Country was a show that took a dead white author and they repurposed the show into a more modern lens. They geared it towards the black community and whatnot. And you didn't see this backlash towards Lovecraft Country. So I'm wondering, I understand what you're saying about it being reactionary like Bud Light, but what makes Robin Hood different than Lovecraft Country? Why didn't we see a review bomb for that when that has a 7 out of 10 on IMDb and a fresh score on Rotten Tomatoes?
I think Lovecraft Country was one. It was earlier in the game, right? So people hadn't felt beat down. Like, we've come a long way in woke culture, and now we're into this place of full on canceling, right? So now it's like there's a full, like, we're just in a different space in Lovecraft Country. Maybe you know what it comes from, but it's not like a beloved thing that absolutely the general culture knows. Right? Like, I didn't watch Lovecraft Country, but I always thought, is it a black thing to be?
I watched it, and it's fine. It's like it's not awful. It's definitely. I don't think it's as good as a lot of people say. It's also not awful. It's a very sort of. Let's be real. No one can do Lovecraft on TV. Lovecraft is almost impossible to adapt TV, videos, movies, whatever. It's nearly impossible to do. So I don't think it's very well done. But it's not that it's poorly done because it's a black version of Lovecraft. It's just Lovecraft is pretty fucking impossible to adapt. So I'm wondering why Robin Hood, and you're saying that this show was in 2020 as opposed to your show being 2023. Things have escalated, and if things have escalated that much in 3 years, then how do we mitigate that? Because people did react incredibly negatively to Robin Hood, and because of that last 3 years of escalation, it's understandable in my opinion. But that we got to find a way on both sides to fix that, and mitigate that. So I wonder what what you think the answer to that is. And before he gets to his answer, I do want to take a moment to say, He came on the show. That's more than a lot of other directors or writers, Hollywood actors, anything to that effect, have done for channels like Hypnotic, for Geeks and Gamers, for Nerdrotic, whatever you want to call it. A lot of individuals just look at the YouTube crowd and laugh. We're an angry bunch of white incel nerds. directorx, for whatever beef we may have or however heated the discussion may have gotten, at least respected us enough and respected himself enough to have this discussion face to face and to bring his ideas to the table. Whether you want to call his ideas good or bad, it doesn't really matter, but I just think it's important to point out that when we do get to his answer about how we mitigate this, I gotta say, I respect the individual for being able to take a question like this. How do we fix nerd culture, and how do we bridge these gaps when there is clearly a gap between the audience at large and the stuff that's coming out of big studios and corporations?
I really don't know, man. Like I said, I thought this isn't hard nerd stuff. Like, I can switch my nerd level. Like, I can go to break out your calculators. You can't get to another solar system in that many years. You know what I'm saying? To, oh, your green kyber crystal lightsaber wouldn't, you know what I mean? Like, so I definitely tuned my nerd level for Robin Hood way down. Again, they're wearing LED fucking animal masks with color coordinated thing. Like, I knew what I was making it for. This young adult, it's a normie show, right? Like, there's a weird little shift. Like, I don't see any YouTubers reviewing Riverdale or Supernatural or what is it? What is the?
Oh, don't get me started, dude. I'll shit all. I've loved Supernatural since season 1. I'll shit all over it. Don't
But you know what?
Yeah, I get what you mean.
It's a much more normie show. Like, if you want to see Batman beating the shit out of some criminal, like, so, and walking into Robin Hood to hate it. Then you start nitpicking all the stuff that doesn't make sense. Where you have to, we've all seen a Fast and Furious movie. Windshields are not pillows.
Right.
I've completely trolled.
No, you're 100% right. People do go into stuff to nitpick and to tear it apart.
Like a bed of soft.
When the Rock pulled off a fucking car door with his hand, I'm fucking done. I'm done.
Broke his cast off his arm.
And once again, I do gotta give a bit of credit to directorx. There are a lot of individuals on YouTube that will go in and review something like Ahsoka, review something like She-Hulk, and they will blow every single little plot hole away with a shotgun of criticism, all because the show also fits into the culture war narrative. However, when a movie or a TV show comes out that isn't woke, like One Piece, well, all of a sudden those criticisms or those little nitpicks don't seem to pop up as much. The nitpicks in the story and the little criticisms that come from this, that, and the other are really only prevalent in reviews that talk about TV shows that don't fit our side of the culture war narrative. I think it's a little bit fair to say, hey, some of you guys are taking this too far when you're doing your Robin Hood reviews. If you want to criticize it for the culture war aspect, if you want to criticize it because it's woke, because they cast a black female lead, and they made the character a female bisexual woman to play, Robin Hood, one of the most famous white characters in fiction, yeah, that's a completely fair criticism in my opinion, because it speaks to a shift in culture that a lot of people consider negative. But I do think it's fair of directorx to kind of say, hey, a lot of people end up giving a pass to TV shows or movies like The Fast and Furious that are going to be silly when there's no culture war aspect to the Fast and the Furious films. At least for the vast majority of the time, there isn't.
We do nitpick like other stuff. Anyway, sorry, Leon. Go ahead. Go.
No, you're right though. People do go in, people do nitpick, and I find that to be, honestly, it's kind of pedantic and annoying on both sides, because I've seen a few good movies this year and I've seen a few bad movies this year. On my channel, I've really only talked about the good ones unless they were egregiously bad. I've made one Robin Hood video. I haven't made any others. A lot of folks will, sit there, they'll make several after several. And my thought process is, I'd rather talk about the good shit. I'd rather talk about Oppenheimer. I'd rather talk about Super Mario Bros. I'd rather talk about Barbie because the set design's incredible despite what people think about the ideologies. Yeah. And Robin Hood, does have room to either grow or fall from where it is currently, because I haven't seen the whole show. I can't judge it as is, but I can judge the first 4 episodes and say there's problems with it, but the problems, in my opinion, most of them are literally on a technical level, not on an ideological level.
Well, look, there's a reality making. Again, Canadian television is normally low budget, right? This is just a reality.
Yeah, I watched Degrassi growing up. I know.
So in the budget, so in a low budget place, this is a low budget show, right? So walking into it, we're already with our back against the wall. So stuff gets tough. Right. If I had, of course, we'd have fight scenes every show. We'd have an amazing stunt every show. We can't afford that. It's just how this goes out here. Right. And then as you start going down the line, just a reality of production. If you say there's a lot of, we're just going to believe in ourselves. We're going to admit, well, you can't believe in yourself past 12 hours. So if you schedule that stuntman to show up, but you don't have time to shoot that stuntman, you still pay that stuntman. That stunt is now a stunt you can't afford later. You feel what I'm saying? Like all this stuff fucking stacks. It's just the moment you start someone throwing punches, there's new money involved. There's all this shit. So it's hard to make TV out here, and we're ambitious. We're going for it. So I do definitely feel in some episodes, you feel the budget.
So actually, you bring up an awesome point because you talk about how it's hard to make movies out there. Now you've done plenty of music videos, you've done TV shows. I believe you've also done movies, but I could be wrong. But because you've mentioned being making filmmaking in America, is that something that you'd be looking to do? Is try and do something bigger budget with an American studio or whatnot to flex what you can do?
I made Superfly, so I'm over here. So here's my, I made Superfly 2018. So I make my TV show, and everyone's like, whoa, bullshit, fucking racial justice bullshit. I made Superfly. Everyone's pulling down black people, motherfucking.
I haven't seen the new Superfly, but the original, so I'll give that a watch. Now, the original Superfly is great. I love the original Superfly.
So Superfly came out right after Black Panther 1. My mother went to see Black Panther with a dashiki on, right? So, you know what I'm saying? So black folks are at this moment of black power. We are kings and queens in Africa. And the next studio picture to come along is Superfly. People are like, what? It's like the studio, hey, black people, remember crime?
Well, to be fair, the original Superfly is a classic, though. Like the 70s were a great era for, call it what you will, blaxploitation films in the 70s were instrumental in Hollywood becoming what it is today. So to be able to take that on, I think that's awesome. It's a juxtaposition.
It's a fun movie. It's a Joel Silver picture, but timing-wise.
So all you guys may be asking this point, Leon, why are you talking about this? He's talking about Superfly. How come you're not hitting him hard about the racism? He called all the fans racist. How can you talk to somebody nicely like this? First of all, the dude's still a human. Let's be real. He's a human, he's a filmmaker, he's a director, and I love film. I'm a bit of a film nerd. I like blaxploitation films. So to be able to humanize somebody and talk with them on that level about something they enjoy, about something that you also enjoy, and find some common ground is incredibly important. And I think building common ground, that way you can get to the hard-hitting stuff, is a necessary building block. So for him to come in and talk about his work on Superfly, his affiliation and his affection for blaxploitation films in the 70s, there is something that we can work with there. It shows him that we're not just a bunch of racist white rednecks who are upset that they turned Spider-Man black in Miles Morales. Some of us do have appreciation for old school movies that whether they be blaxploitation films or horror films or whatever it be. We're not just out here being angry for the sake of angry. We do care about this medium. So when I bring up the original Superfly that came out in 1972 that I've seen and that I'm a fan of, I'm doing this to show, hey, we've got common ground. Let's take that and see where we can go with it. Let's see if we can work with this. And you can see the way his eyes light up. He's happy to talk about it. He's smiling. This is a far cry from some of the other points in the interview where he's very riled up and upset at the criticism. And you know what? If only for a moment we got to have him very happy and upbeat about talking about a product other than Robyn Hood, which I'm sure at this point in time he's probably kind of getting tired of talking about, whether it be good or bad. I think that's a positive moment that is worth leaving in there. So for all of you guys, viewing pleasure, remember, we're all still human. It's good to show people, even if there's people you don't like, in their more human moments. Hitler had a dog after all, and I bet you money it's pretty difficult for you guys to picture the man that genocided 6 million Jews petting his puppy and telling him how much he loved it. But it probably did happen. He probably loved that dog quite a bit. So when y'all are attacking Director X, sometimes understandably so for some of the actions and behaviors he's had, it is pretty nice to see the guy happy talking about blaxploitation films. However, it's not all fun and games this entire discussion. There are quite a bit of parts where he does get rather upset when he takes the criticism, in my opinion, far too personally, and sometimes I think does need to rein it in. Now, granted, I do get it. This show is his baby. It's his new show, and some people are unfairly attacking it on the internet, while other people have very fair and valid criticisms. Is the show a 1? Is it a 3? Is it a 10? Is it a 7? None of that really matters. What matters is, are the people that are giving the criticism going about it in good faith? Now, I do think this here is a point where he goes a little bit off the deep end when it comes to his reactions to some of the criticism he's getting, and I'd like to take this point to, in my opinion, rein him back in a bit and show him you're going a bit out of bounds when you're saying things that judge all the reviewers and all the critics as a whole rather than talking about individual situations.
from the beginning. Again, you're telling me that this show, from the moment it was announced that production started, the hate came in. The people, YouTubers, big YouTubers are making videos saying this show's gonna suck. Then we say the show's coming out in a month. More now. Everybody, tons of videos. This show's gonna suck. Then the show comes out, surprise, the show sucks. Every single piece of my social media, my Twitter, which I barely use, my Instagram, and then I started TikTok, filled with people saying your show sucks, your show sucks, your show sucks, your show sucks, your show sucks. IMDb has somehow come some sacred ground where these people would never, ever disrespect the IMDb.
Well, you realize
so every social media is filled with people saying your show shit, but IMDb, I must now say, because it serves your own narrative. Because you want to believe, y'all want to say, aha, it's a flop. Look at the IMDb. You want to play this game. This is the narrative you enjoy. Just like my friend wants to believe that Ray Epps is crazy when he's clearly fucking not. You all want to play this narrative, so you're defending the narrative because you want that 1.0 to be a real thing, and it's not. I don't care the games you want to play with me right now. It's not.
Now, for some context here, what we're trying to say to him is that some of these one-star reviews are probably legitimate. Now, whether you agree with the fact the show is 1 star or not doesn't matter. There are probably some people out there who wrote a review, a 1-star review, paragraphs long, and they probably truly felt that way. Now, would I say the show is a 1-star show? No, not at all. I already said, as it currently stands, it's about a 3-star. Still not a very great show, but I do think some people are going too harsh on it. But my judgment for what is good or what's 1 star is going to be different than somebody else's. So I think it is unfair to say that we're all the same, that everyone who's giving it this 1-star review is treating IMDb like it's some golden goose and like it fits our narrative. And all we're trying to say is that some people on IMDb who gave it that 1 star probably do truly believe that, and to discount it all as review bombing is a bit disingenuous, and it doesn't give a lot of room for the people who want to be true reviewers, who really do review things and enjoy it because they love doing it. It gives them no wiggle room, so now they have to give something, a 2, a 3, a 4, to criticize it and it be taken seriously, when there might be people out there that give it a 1 star because they genuinely feel like it's a 1 star, even if it's only one person. If you've got 4,000 1-star reviews, and only one of them is a legit 1 star, well, that's still a legit 1 star, and it's a rationale that I think he's having trouble wrapping his head around because it is so lopsided, because there are 4,000 plus 1-star reviews and barely over 110 star, and really almost nothing in the middle, to be honest. It's very difficult for him to admit that there might be some legitimate 1-star reviews out there, but let's be real. There are. People got different tastes. People like different things. People have different views on what they want out of their TV show. So to denounce all 1-star reviews as review bombing, I don't think is fair to the actual individual reviewing. Just like I looked at him as an individual and was happy to hear about his thoughts on Superfly and blaxploitation films, and was happy to hear his thoughts on how we mitigate reactionary culture going forward when it comes to these woke kind of propaganda-style TV shows. Even if Robin Hood wasn't that or was never meant to be that, that's how it got viewed as. I wanted his honest opinion. I wanted his honest thoughts on how do we mitigate that going forward, because we are all in the same boat in that we want culture, TV, pop culture, the whole nine, to be good again. I would like for the majority of us to be united, or if we're going to debate about it and argue about it around the water cooler, it not be about petty things like politics, but about, who our favorite character is or why X character sucks, things like that. So I just think it's disingenuous to pretend, and maybe he doesn't even realize that maybe it's not pretending, maybe he truly feels this way. There are going to be people out there that hated this show, that gave it 1 star because it was that bad. Is it going to be a minority of people? No pun intended. Yeah, probably, but they are still going to be there. At least acknowledge they exist.
Other than that, in this scenario, they didn't touch the source material. They switched out one character that actually fed to the actual thing. Again, you're saying that all these people showed up to hate the show. They're in every bit of my social media hating the show. But for some reason in IMDb, they're being truly genuine. Stop, bro. Again, y'all, I don't know who y'all think you're talking to, but I ain't.
Okay, you guys stop saying y'all. You guys stop saying y'all, dude. I straight up said the show is like a 3 star. So if you say y'all, that immediately includes individuals like me who were fair. So stop generalizing. I don't want to generalize to you. So I said, as it stands, the show's a 3, which still isn't good. But to be fair, that's not all of us, because I'm more or less taking your side on a few of these. Like give some credit where it's due.
Yeah, that's fine. Individually, yeah, not ever look. Like I said, I feel that the larger story that this is a reaction to woke culture, the wokeness of the world and a pushback to it. So I'm not taking that all, but to say to me, 4,000 votes, 3,900 of them are 1 star. Please, y'all, stop.
So if you want to talk about
come on.
And I think my pushback right there was pretty fair, considering he was trying to generalize a lot of us, when, frankly, me and Atreus had spent a lot of time actually defending him and his views and his points. Even if we disagree with aspects of them, there were other aspects that, yeah, a lot of people hadn't given consideration to, or if they had given consideration, threw it out the window for their own narrative. So that's something that I think directorx has a real problem with, not just in this particular discussion, but in previous ones that we've seen him, whether it be with Mr. H, whether it be on the Toronto News Network or whatever. He will throw all of us in this same box as if we're all the same, as if we're all these same, angry white incel nerds or whatnot, when there are individuals on this side of things who are criticizing the show and or criticizing him that actually do agree with some of the points he's saying. So if you do want to bridge that gap, if you want to bridge this culture war and reach some sort of, conclusion, then maybe stop generalizing all of us as if, we're all the same, when you've got individuals, for example, in this discussion, like me and Atreus, who were taking his side on certain issues. Now, granted, that's a lot easier said than done. Generalizations are something very simple and very easy and, frankly, kind of low-hanging fruit for folks to do. We do it on our side all the time as well. We jump to, oh, it's a Disney movie, it's gonna be woke. Why? Because the last 10, 15, 20 Disney movies have all been woke. So we make these generalizations as well. Something gets announced from Disney, we assume it's going to be woke as well without actually looking into all the full details. Now, normally we're right to do so, but hey, it could surprise us, so the generalizations are not just a problem on his end, but they're a problem worth pointing out that both sides are doing, and it doesn't heal anything, it doesn't put this culture war closer to having an end, so it's just, we gotta stop, and directorx has to stop as well. So I just think it's very, important to note that once I did say, hey, you gotta stop doing this, he did back off. He acknowledged it was a problem. He said, you know what, you want to talk about the individuals? That's fine. And he realized that was a mistake to have done, which is also showing he was receptive on being called out on some of the BS. Now, again, some other stuff earlier, when other people were talking to him, he may not have been receptive as, but I think the fact that he was receptive here is good. It shows that there is something there, that we don't just have to disagree for the sake of disagreeing, or because, oh, I have to have my side win. No, I've got to have my side win. Once someone said something logical, rational, in this instance, when I said, you got to stop saying this, we're all together, I'm an example of, on this show, having taken your side earlier, and he's like, okay, you know what? Fair enough. He took that, he took the common sense, the logic, and backed off a bit. That's actually a good sign, in my opinion, and again, I wish things hadn't gotten so heated to have caused that, but the fact that it did get heated, the fact that we did have to go down this route, and then back off and get back into a more, calm and logical flow state of conversation, I think is considered progress.
No, I really want to know, why.
Because it's not genuine, bro. What are you talking about? These are genuine. They're there to hate it. The mother says, I put condoms in the condom jar. Don't catch nothing. Which is a proper message that these kids need to hear. Condom, bro, that's not that funny. You think
I need to honestly ask.
You don't understand. I don't understand a fake laugh. You don't understand. You don't think I don't understand someone pushing it too far, and then you all try and talk to me like I must accept the game you're playing. Nah, Dredd, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. And I'm not going to play that game with you. I'm not a fucking why. You understand?
So about the condoms in the cookie jar thing, because I did find that funny, but I have a different, kind of perspective on it than I think most people do. So I genuinely, because you talk about being genuine, I genuinely do have a question for you about that I want to, ask you. If you're open to an actual question. So, like, cause you say that's a good message about not catching stuff. I actually agree. Some people might not know about your boy Leon. I ran away at 16, broken home. My mother was a single mom who was a prostitute. Damn. So I actually found that line funny, but I found it funny because I think it lacked a certain bit of self-awareness. So coming from, this is a Canadian show, coming from an American perspective, you're the one country that polices things like stereotypes and anything that can be construed as, offensive. So I can't speak for anyone else, but I found it funny that it comes off as hypocritical, just that the view that so many people have of Canada is that your country has laws that will prohibit the free speech of podcasters, but they're okay with their black female lead being portrayed as a skank. There's a disconnect there that I do think is funny, even though that is a good message, because it's Canadian, not because of, what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's y'all pushing that in there. You all showed up to hate on every line. You all showed up to hate on everything that happens. You're not giving the.
Can you admit that somebody who has a prostitute mother would find it to be kind of funny that a Canadian TV show?
That is, bro. We screened this in a bunch of different audiences. That's not a laugh line. That's a laugh line for y'all because y'all.
No, the line is not funny. I agree with you. The line is not funny. What I'm saying is funny is that from my anecdotal experience, I listened to that line, thought because of the view that Americans have of Canada as being this super progressive land and whatnot. So to see something so progressive, it's a stereotype in of itself. Like, oh my goodness, of course Canadians will put a line in there. That's funny from an American to a Canadian point of view, not because the line is funny.
You're reaching.
Because
I'm gonna tell you straight, bro. That's a reach.
Now, this part of the discussion is the only part that I truly took exception to. That I was pretty annoyed with directorx and how dismissive he was of my thought process and of what I thought was funny, because I've got a pretty unique experience. Most individuals out there don't have a mother that frankly was a prostitute. So when I'm watching a TV show and I see a mom say there's condoms in the cookie jar so you don't catch something, and it takes me back to my childhood, to my mom, and I find that unintentionally funny. Look, comedy is subjective. You can't call that a reach. I'm not saying everyone should see it like me, that everyone should see it funny because I found it funny for my own personal anecdotal reason, but it's funny to me because as somebody who grew up with that experience, I'm now seeing a Canadian show talk about it, which I thought was ironically funny at the time, purely because of what I'd gone through as a child. It had nothing to do with, how other people should see it, and to call it a reach, for him to call me finding something unintentionally funny a reach, well, when you're walking with your best friend and they trip and fall, your first instinct is to laugh. It's not funny that they tripped and fell, but sometimes, let's be real, you unintentionally laugh. That's what happened with me and the moms in the condom jar. I unintentionally laughed and found it funny purely because of an experience I had throughout my life and because of the American stereotype about Canada. Why is it that South Park can make jokes about, Canada for being Canada, and that be part of the American cultural zeitgeist? How many people in America look at Canada as a joke? Whether it's deserved or not doesn't really matter. A lot of individuals in America look at Canada like it's something funny and like they are a bit of a stereotype. So when you see a stereotype like this in a show, and then you've got the experience I had, it culminated into an unintentionally funny moment. And even though I agree with him that the line itself was not funny and that the message was good, he could not acknowledge that I have a unique experience that he can understand. All right, fair enough. In your instance, I can see why you would find that funny. It would have been so easy for him to try and put himself in my shoes and be like, this kid who had a prostitute mother, and now we're watching a TV show where the mom says something about not catching something. Okay, fair enough in this instance, but he couldn't even give me that. He couldn't acknowledge that my personal experience could have given me something different in this show than somebody else's. And that's sort of dismissiveness, and that's sort of him calling it a reach when all I was doing was sharing my personal experience that correlated to the show. I'm sorry, that's uncool, that's uncalled for. I'm sure you don't want people, you started off this show, talking about your heritage and being upset at how people were being very dismissive of certain aspects of your life, but then you wanted to be dismissive about, my stance, what happened to me anecdotally. Let's be fair, that's a bit hypocritical, to be fair.
Right.
If I can give you a compliment real quick on the casting of Ian Matthews, obviously as someone who didn't really care for the show all that much, but I have a favorite scene from the show, and it is when he and Robyn's mother are in the hospital together. That's a very well directed scene. Yeah. That's been by and large my favorite part of the show is their conversation. Real good scene.
They're terrific together.
Now, for context about that compliment, there was a super chat that unfortunately wasn't on screen at the time that I made the comment, but that was talking about one of the actors, and frankly, it made me think of a scene in the show that I really liked. And as the show was winding down, I thought, it's probably a good idea to acknowledge some of the positives. We had spent a lot of time talking about the negatives of the show, about 4 hours talking about negatives, with very little positivity in between. So I thought it was probably prudent to mention that there was something about the show that I enjoyed, something that I thought was well done, and he was receptive to it. He agreed those actors were great together, and as it goes on, we continued to talk, laugh as we went through the super chats. The super chats were, minus one pretty tense moment, a real fun time. We were laughing, reading them. Even some of the people that were taking pot shots at him in the super chats, he kind of laughed along with and took some pot shots back. Now, there was one super chat that got him pretty heated, but I'm not going to get into that. That's his own thing. But for the most part, I paid him a compliment. He took that compliment, and we all had a good time afterwards. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because because I had just showed a segment where, in my opinion, he was pretty dismissive of me, and I thought that I wasn't a fan of that slight. But I wanted to talk about the compliment because after the show, or while the show was winding down, neither of us let that stick. He wasn't dismissive towards me going forward in the show. In fact, he and I had a couple of other bits of dialogue that I'm not putting in the video because you don't need to see every time he and I spoke. I mean, that's just not necessary. But point is, after that comment, he and I continued to have other bits of dialogue, and things were fine. Things were chill. We didn't hold it against each other, and I think that's important. And I think showing off that the compliments that we can give one another are also important. And here's the last bit. You guys might be wondering, is this guy genuine? Do you think that this, any of this got through? Was this just a clout chasing thing? Well, he did something that I don't think he had to do. Let me show you. So he was actually simultaneously streaming this on Instagram while we were streaming, and again, he did it the whole time. Afterwards, he had this to say, had a long conversation with some YouTubers about Robyn Hood TV. There's a wide range of emotions going on here. I get a little aggressive sometimes, but ultimately a good conversation. He didn't have to make this post, he didn't have to say that, and frankly, he also didn't have to admit that he gets a little aggressive sometimes. He was, being somewhat humble, had some humility here to talk about that, to call it a good discussion, to talk, to give a bit of a positive connotation to the whole experience. He didn't have to do this, but after the show was over, he did, which leads me to believe that, yeah, he probably took something away from this just like we took something away in a positive manner, and that this was overall a good thing for the communities at large because we got to have this discussion. So I saw this and I responded. It was great to be able to have this discussion, and I appreciate you coming on and communicating. Like you say, we don't have to agree 100%, but the dialogue is important, and it's more than lots of others in your shoes would have done. Thanks for coming on, and mad respect. From Leon. Now, he responded back to that. Once again, he didn't have to do. Appreciate you. Good talk. And then afterwards, he followed me on Instagram. Something he once again didn't have to do. Now, I can only imagine that he would make a post talking about it being a good conversation. He would only respond to my response and then follow me because he also saw something productive in it. So, to that, I've got to say, thank you, directorx. I genuinely feel like we did make some headway. There was a good conversation, and I appreciate that, and frankly, very much respect the fact that you had the courage to do what a lot of other individuals in your space either are afraid to do, refuse to do, have some, bad thought processes about who we really are, don't give us a chance, or the studio won't let them. There's probably a myriad of reasons that individuals don't come talk with YouTubers who, frankly, criticize a lot of their work. But you did that, and then you kind of went the extra mile afterwards, and I gotta say, I appreciate it. Not everyone's going to agree with what happened in that live stream. Not everyone's going to agree with me. In fact, I'm probably going to get some shade and hate in my comments for extending the olive branch and talking about how good a discussion it was, because a lot of people think that this culture war needs to go. They are monetarily incentivized to keep the negativity going, and so in moments like these that are positive, I gotta say, I think that's what makes it worth it, because a lot of us truly do want to see good, positive things out of nerd culture again. Hopefully those of you that have gotten this far in the video are those as well, and if so, by all means, please do drop me a subscribe, check out the channel. I'm trying to get to 2,000 subscribers before the end of the year, and this is not a channel where we just angrily spurg out about, race-swapped characters. Don't get me wrong, that does happen, but usually, in my opinion, for good reason, and I would much rather talk about positive things than negative. So if we can get nerd culture to being positive again, that, in my opinion, would be the best thing for all of us. So mad respect to directorx. Awesome job, Hypnotic, for putting this on. Great job, everyone at the panel, who, frankly, was also able to contribute, and sometimes far better of a fashion than I was to it. And let's all go out there, make nerd culture good again, and follow me on Instagram at wordsofparadise_Leon. But until next time, it's all here in the nerdosphere, and this has been Words of Paradise.